No way, that's impossible. We're living together. You just need to sign the divorce papers. Good luck with your poor life. I stood there in a daze, holding the phone after the call was abruptly cut off. The lawyer couldn't help but burst into laughter. Jessica looked at the lawyer with a puzzled expression. The lawyer was wiping tears with a handkerchief. The CEO is actually Linda. My name is Linda. I've been married to my husband Mike for 2 years. We don't have children. We both work and are so busy that we often work on weekends. We hardly have time for long conversations, leading to a life of passing each other by. Therefore, we try to match our schedules and go on overseas trips during our long breaks. It's only once a year, but we both look forward to it. When we got married, we decided to buy an upper-floor condo in a Bay Area tower. It was a stretch, but we did it considering the future value of the asset. Thanks to that, we're satisfied with our current life. I have a close friend from high school, Jessica. We sometimes go out for lunch together. Jessica, being beautiful, has high standards for men. She's not married yet but has a strong desire to do so. She's always looking for well-educated, high-income men on dating apps. Especially, she won't compromise on income. One day, I was enjoying lunch with Jessica at a cafe near a park. We were together in high school and university, even in the same classes. That's why we've consulted each other about various things. As a result, we know quite a bit about each other's dating histories and types. During our student days, we shared both fun and sad times. Those are good memories. Since I married Mike 2 years ago, we've both become busy, and the time we can meet has decreased. Now we meet only a few times a year, if that. Hey, can I come visit your condo next time? Jessica suddenly asked me. Jessica had never been to my place before. Then on the weekend, Jessica came over to my place. I could sense her amazement even through the intercom at the entrance. Jessica kept saying, "This is amazing." The moment I opened the front door, Jessica looked impressed. "Wow, this place is like a mansion, and that elevator ride up was so long." I chose a spacious upper-floor condo because it was a once-in-a-lifetime purchase without compromising. It's even more spacious than a house. It's beautiful, really incredible. Jessica looked around the house, turning her head in every direction. Great location and an upper floor in a high-rise like this must have cost a pretty fortune. Jessica asked with a sly smile. Yeah, it's what you'd call a $1 million condominium. It's got great security too. Look here. Jessica cut me off, reacting only to the term $1 million condominium. Right? It must be over $1 million. Your husband must be making a lot, she said, eyes wide with astonishment. That was so like Jessica. She's always had high standards for men, especially regarding their income. Mike's salary is quite high for his age, I guess, I said vaguely. I felt it was tacky to be too explicit. Huh. She had a look that seemed to have some ulterior motive. Jessica said, "Can I use your bathroom?" and left the living room. I told Jessica where the bathroom was and then started preparing tea in the kitchen. Concerned about Jessica, who was taking a while to return, I was about to head to the bathroom when Jessica came back. Just replying to an email. Jessica doesn't usually make excuses like that. I felt a slight sense of unease while enjoying the cookies Jessica brought as a gift and having tea. She asked, "Can I stay till evening?" She apparently wanted to greet Mike. Indeed, it had been since our wedding that Jessica last saw Mike. It's not unnatural for her to want to see him. I decided to check with Mike just in case. Mike happily agreed. I might finish work early, he replied in an email. I assured Jessica that it was okay, and then I began preparing dinner. Jessica was initially engrossed in her smartphone, but eventually stood up and headed to the bathroom again. Unaware of the prolonged absence while cooking, I noticed when Jessica returned. She was wearing a necklace that seemed oddly familiar. It was mine. Staring at the necklace, Jessica flashed an embarrassed smile. How do I look? Does it suit me? She posed like a model. Stunned, I observed as Jessica started laughing, saying, "Oh, come on. I'm just kidding. I just found it and thought it was cute. It must have been super expensive, right? A premium piece for sure. She rambled like a child trying to justify her actions, labeling it a gift for Mike. Wow, he must be really wealthy to afford something like this, Jessica sighed. However, the necklace was stored in the closet in the bedroom. Jessica must have pretended to go to the bathroom and instead went to the bedroom, peeking into the closet. That's what it seemed like. I couldn't believe her actions, but I didn't want to come off as petty, so I emphasized that it was a precious item. Taking advantage of my lack of reprimand, Jessica made an outrageous request. Can I borrow this necklace for a while? I've got a date with a doctor I met on a dating app, and I want to wear it for that, please, she pleaded, joining her hands together as if praying. Reluctantly, I decided to lend it to her, emphasizing the need for careful handling, as it was a gift for Mike. As soon as Jessica knew she could borrow it, she smiled and began caressing the necklace. Of course, I understand she seemed to pay no mind to my words. When I finished the meal prep, I pretended to go to the bathroom to check the bedroom. Sure enough, the closet in the bedroom and the chest beside the bed weren't fully closed. Jessica must have opened every drawer and door she could find. There were fingerprints on the jewelry, watches, and precious metals. Jessica might have touched things, but probably didn't intend to borrow them. The shoes seemed to have been forced on, and the heels were misshapen. This was clearly going too far. Returning to the living room, I confronted Jessica. You touched various things in the bedroom, didn't you? The shoes were misshaped, and there were fingerprints on the watch. Rather than appearing remorseful, Jessica puffed out her cheeks a bit. Please don't do that again, she said. Jessica returned to her normal expression and apologized, saying sorry. Not wanting to dwell on this and risk straining our friendship, I decided to just lightly laugh it off. That's when Mike came home, holding a box of cake. Mike and Jessica saw each other for the first time since our wedding. It was awkward at first, but they gradually warmed up to each other, making for a lively dinner. By the time we ate the cake Mike brought, they were chatting like good friends. While I was clearing the dishes and washing up, they were laughing together. My boss is terrible, right? I envy Mike's subordinates. Mike was grinning, eyes crinkling with laughter. That's not true. I was a bit bothered by Jessica casually touching Mike. But at the time, I thought it was better than them being distant. After all, Mike wasn't the type of man Jessica usually goes out with. About a month after Jessica's visit, Mike's behavior started to change. He spent more time on his smartphone, which he usually didn't do much. He often seemed distracted when I talked to him and asked me to repeat myself. He always carried the phone with him, even taking it to the bathroom. It was an obvious change, and it seemed I had become a cheated-on wife. Contemplating checking Mike's phone, I hesitated to even touch it. Conversations between Mike and me at home became increasingly rare, and he started working on weekends much more. Mike was hardly ever at home on weekends, and while we barely saw each other on weekdays originally, now not seeing each other on weekends too felt like living separately within the same house. Moreover, we started sleeping in separate bedrooms under the pretext of his tiredness. Vaguely considering divorce or separation, I stumbled upon divorce papers on the living room table one day. Upon closer inspection, Mike had already signed them. Though I had suspected it, actually seeing it still shook me. With trembling hands, I called Mike, questioning him about the unexpected discovery. I just got home and saw it on the table. What does this mean exactly? I inquired, hoping for clarification. Mike's response struck me hard. It's what it looks like. I want a divorce, he declared, leaving me stunned. Pressing him for a proper reason, Mike dropped the bombshell. I've fallen in love with someone else. It's not an affair. I'm serious. With disbelief, I heard a familiar female voice on the phone, Jessica. It was what I had suspected. I'm dating Mike, and I even want to marry him, Jessica admitted nonchalantly. Hearing the confirmation made my heart race and brought on a cold sweat. Jessica's crude way of talking hinted at a side of her I hadn't seen before. Mike echoed, there's nothing left to talk about. Can you just sign the divorce papers and send them off? I want to talk things over, so please tell Mike to come home." Stunned by the abrupt ending of the phone call, I couldn't move for a while. Sleepless nights persisted as Mike didn't come home, and I couldn't bring myself to touch the divorce papers. Jessica continued to torment me by sending multiple photos of her and Mike together, flaunting their relationship. My mental health deteriorated, and my complexion worsened. People around me became worried, urging me to seek medical help. Reluctantly, I ended up in treatment, managing to regain some peace with medication. An unbelievable incident unfolded upon my return from the hospital. Something felt off inside the room, and upon checking the bedroom, I discovered that bags and jewelry were missing. The count of jewelry watches in the chest was off too. There was only one person who could do this. Jessica. Questions swirled in my mind. Why would she do something like this? What had I ever done to her? My insomnia relapsed, and sleepless nights continued, leaving me staggering through my days. During counseling at the hospital, when I mentioned the theft at home, I was strongly advised to consult a lawyer. I promptly contacted the company's lawyer and set up an appointment, stating my clear intention. I'll get a divorce. I want those two to face proper consequences. I responded immediately, surprising even myself. Just a little while ago, I was pondering what to do, and I couldn't believe how easily those words came out of my mouth. Perhaps I really wanted to punish them after being tormented so one-sidedly. It was just about getting back at them. Now, a week later, I received a message from Jessica. I had sent her a certified letter. "Hey, what are you thinking, sending a certified letter to my workplace?" Jessica sounded pretty angry, her voice filled with rage. "You must have expected at least this much. Anyway, I'm leaving everything to my lawyer now." I hung up the phone. Jessica called several times after that, but I ignored all of them. Then Mike called. I had sent a certified letter to his parents' house. Apparently, his affair being exposed at home caused a huge uproar. I wanted to burst out laughing at his self-inflicted predicament, but managed to restrain myself. Feeling that leaving it all to the lawyer wouldn't be enough to calm my feelings, I decided to confront them both. I would denounce them thoroughly on the spot. The lawyer arranged the date and time, and we decided to have the discussion at the law office. A few days later, the two reluctantly showed up at the law office. I thought they would bring their own lawyer, but it seemed they came alone. Jessica stormed into the office, flinging the door open. Mike followed, looking uncomfortable. "Finally, we meet, you coward." Jessica made no effort to hide her anger, but Mike stepped forward, trying to calm her down. "Well, you've been running away all this time. Our wedding's been delayed because of you." Jessica looked like she might throw her bag at me any moment, and Mike was desperately trying to hold her back as I watched them with a pitiful feeling. The lawyer nodded at me. "Please calm down. If any violence or abusive language occurs, we will immediately call the police." Understood. The mention of the police made Jessica stiffen. With the lawyer's intervention, Jessica and Mike took their seats, becoming calmer. We sat across from each other at the office table, ready to start the discussion. "Mike, you're seeking a divorce, correct?" Jessica was sitting hotly, while Mike slumped, looking small. "We'd agreed to the divorce. However, since your relationship is adultery, we will ask for alimony. Is there any significance to this?" Mike's face clouded over. "I'll agree to the divorce, but once the alimony is paid, don't contact us ever." I quietly nodded in agreement, and Jessica looked displeased, maybe expecting more resistance from me. When the lawyer began discussing the alimony amount, Jessica snapped. I said, "Any amount is fine. We have plenty of money." Jessica sat arrogantly with her arms crossed. The lawyer looked at her with interest, saying, "Oh yes, didn't he research? Mike is the president of a jewelry company with a yearly revenue of $2 billion. Mike looked up frantically, trying to restrain Jessica's arm. Jessica, her face flushed, continued excitedly, "Alimony for an affair is nothing to us. I'll even give a proper share of the property." Mike was trying hard to calm her down. Jessica shook off his hand and continued, "You can barely make ends meet on your salary, right?" She scoffed with a laugh. The lawyer burst into uncontrollable laughter. Jessica looked at him with a puzzled expression, and the lawyer wiped tears with a handkerchief. "Actually, the president is Linda." Jessica was dumbstruck, her mouth hanging open. Mike hung his head, his body trembling slightly. "Mike is just an ordinary employee with no position at Linda's company. I am Linda's corporate lawyer." Jessica started laughing loudly. "What are you talking about? Are you really a lawyer? Can lawyers lie?" The lawyer calmly replied, "Why not ask Mike next to you if what I said is a lie?" Mike, meanwhile, just bit his lip, looking down. Growing more anxious, Jessica grabbed Mike's arms and began shaking him. "You said you were the president of a $2 billion jewelry company. That's not a lie, right?" Mike remained silent, covering his face with his hands, uttering inaudible moans. Growing more desperate, Jessica gripped his arms tighter, repeatedly asking, "Answer me. It's not a lie, right?" Finally, Mike whispered in a raspy voice, "I'm sorry." Mike's single apology plunged the room into a deep silence. Jessica's strength seemed to leave her body, and she let her hands that were gripping Mike fall limply. "You said you were the president of a company making $2 billion a year," she muttered, almost to herself. Mike's solitary apology had plunged Jessica into despair. She stood up, trembling. "It's a lie, right? There's no way you're the president." Jessica pointed at me accusingly. "Why didn't I know about this after all we've shared?" I spoke to Jessica calmly, as if guiding her. "Just because we're close friends doesn't mean I tell you everything, especially since you were so fixated on money. I had no intention of telling you," I said, looking Jessica straight in the eyes without averting my gaze. Jessica seemed to lose all her energy and slumped down. "Then that house, of course. The house is in my name, so Mike will be the one leaving." Jessica fell silent, and Mike continued to hold his head. Mike probably didn't want to come here. He knew this would happen. But if he didn't come here, things would be worse. It's hell either way for him now. Mike is left with nothing but hell waiting for him. The lawyer began to present the evidence I had gathered. First, the photos of Mike and Jessica together, the photos sent to my phone, now printed. The lawyer placed an IC recorder on the table and played the recorded conversation. "Why would you send something like this?" "I just wanted to share our happiness with you." Jessica's voice filled the room, while Mike seemed to be holding back tears. "Hey, still clinging to the past. I want to divorce quickly." "I know what you're clinging to. It's Mike's income. He's the president of a $2 billion jewelry company, right?" "You hid it because you thought I might take it?" Jessica, perhaps embarrassed, covered her face with her hands. "Hurry up a divorce and leave that condo. It'll be mine soon. Too bad Mike didn't come back to you. I'll give you as much alimony as you want." "Poor thing, your aim was the money, not Mike." "I'm speechless at how you've been deceived, Mike." Mike and Jessica fell silent. "Do you think this is over? What else is there, Jessica? You broke into the house when Linda wasn't there and stole several items, didn't you?" I felt relieved at the lawyer's calm demeanor. Mike looked shocked, apparently unaware of this. "Hey, what's this about stealing?" Jessica bit her lower lip, her hands shaking. "No, not me. I don't know anything." The lawyer placed a tablet on the table and played a video. It showed Jessica sneaking into the bedroom, taking bags and jewelry, and stuffing them into her bag. Jessica stared wide-eyed at the footage. "What is this? Why are you recording me? Isn't this illegal surveillance?" Mike covered his face with his hands. "We always had security cameras inside our house. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? Who would think you'd break in to steal?" "I felt a headache coming on from their foolish exchange, and you used my key without permission. I wanted those things. It's your fault for not buying them for me." The two began arguing, ignoring us. The lawyer and I could only look on in disbelief. "Please save your arguments for later. Regarding this theft, we will be filing a police report," the lawyer said calmly. Jessica seemed to panic at the mention of the police. "That's a bit much, isn't it?" I just borrowed something from a friend. I never gave you permission to borrow anything. I spoke to her calmly. Besides, you're not a friend or anything. You were just a classmate. That's why I'm filing a police report. Jessica started to kneel and apologize. I looked down at her and said coldly, "You're going to compensate. The value of what you stole is more than your annual income." "Are you sure about that?" Jessica was speechless. "And there's also the matter of the alimony." Jessica turned to Mike, pleading in a tearful voice, "You'll pay, right? Even if you're not the president, you still earn well, right?" Mike was silent, looking down. "He can't pay it because he's about to be fired," I said. Mike looked up in surprise. "That's correct. Since leaving the house, Mike has not shown up for work. Plus, with this commotion, there have been complaints from his boss," I explained. Mike looked like he might collapse on the floor. "But there's still the property division, right?" "I'll pay with that," Jessica said desperately. "That's not possible. Linda and Mike have a prenuptial agreement regarding property." "You didn't hear anything from Mike, did you?" "He never told you the inconvenient truths," I replied calmly. I regarded Mike with disdain as the lawyer placed the contract on the table. The agreement explicitly stated that if the marriage lasted less than 3 years, neither party could claim the other's property. Given that they were currently in the 2nd year of marriage, Jessica attempted to grab the document as if to tear it up. "You should handle that document carefully. It's a notarized deed, and you could be held legally accountable for damaging it," I warned. At the mention of potential legal consequences, Jessica halted her attempt to destroy the document and began to half-heartedly plead with Mike. "Mike, you have savings, right? Use that to pay," she suggested. Mike, looking at Jessica with resentful eyes, retorted, "What money? You always wanted sushi, steak. There's no way I have any savings left." "It appears that way. And it seems he has debts from unsavory sources," I added. Jessica's shoulders slumped, revealing the pitiable sight of the once glamorous appearance that used to turn heads. This was the result of the seeds she had sowed herself, leaving the two looking haggard and lost, muttering about how this wasn't supposed to happen and what they would do now. Deciding to leave the rest to the lawyer, I stood up to leave, emphasizing to Jessica, "Money isn't something you steal from others. It's something you earn through effort." After that, the divorce proceeded smoothly. I sent all of Mike's belongings back to his parents, who kept apologizing to me and even sent a letter of apology. Jessica, on the other hand, faced police interrogation for illegal entry and theft, leading to her arrest after admitting guilt. Although she showed remorse and an intent to compensate, her other crimes, including stealing from men she met on a dating app, suggested she might face a prison sentence. Mike, unable to live in Jessica's apartment, moved to an old apartment on the outskirts of town. Despite looking for a job, his unexplained absences and poor attitude at his last job made it challenging to get hired. He resorted to day labor to get by, receiving regular updates on their situations from the lawyer. I threw myself into work after the divorce. Currently, I am expanding our company's jewelry line to Europe, an idea that emerged during a break I took after the divorce. During that time, I had the chance to connect with the owner of a jewelry store in France. We bonded over shared experiences of divorce, and he agreed to showcase my company's jewelry in his store. Focusing on sales in France, I considered it a well-deserved perk after all I had been through.